Good afternoon to Unni, he's in Dubai, and good evening to Indians, and good morning to the rest of the world in the Americans and Canadians, and a lot of friends from Southeast Asia today. It's two global digitization experts joining me in their own space. One, typically advisors, guides, and the other one is a practicing manager himself, practicing leader. So Deepak and Unni, you're welcome to this Ray Talks edition. And today we are going to discuss global perspective on future of farming. How digital agriculture is paving the way for feeding the future. How digital agriculture is paving the way for feeding the future? Farming is both most important and most stressful job on the planet, as we all know. The simple reason for the far-reaching consequences of agrarian distress are the facts that first it impacts nearly 50% of the population in emerging and developing countries directly, as they are predominantly dependent on farming income, and second, it impacts 100% of global population indirectly, as food security is under tremendous threat. Digital technologies are key to future of farming to ensure a financially substantial farmer and food secured world. Let us understand global food security challenges and impact of COVID in current times and post-COVID. Digital transformation in agriculture, how technology mega trends are happening and will change the way we are doing farming. Way forward for multi-stakeholder approach in solving challenges faced by global food systems. I have today with me to discuss Unnikrishnan Nair. Unnikrishnan Nair, as he, one second, is a person who seems to be shy, but is a person with a lot of stuff. Unnikrishnan Nair is the regional head of digital transformation and IT in Bayer Crop Science Asia Pacific. His focus is on transforming internal business processes as well as delivering solutions to farmers' needs using technological capabilities. Unni works very closely with the startup ecosystem to nurture new innovations as well as providing them with the right platform to grow further in the agtech space. He has managed multiple global programs in helping organizations adapt to change operating environments due to the impact of digitalization across geographies. He has a master in computer applications from University of Pune and advanced studies in international businesses from INSEAD, France. Welcome, Unni, for this Ray Talks show. I'm honored to have you as a speaker.
Thank you.
Yes. And next in my speaker list is our own Deepak Pareek, who hails from a typical agrarian society, and he does, one second. Yeah, and he comes, as I said, from the agrarian society and guides across the globe in various aspects of agricultural aspects. He is founder of HNYB and Technology Pioneer World Economic Forum. Deepak is a technocrat honored as a top agripreneurs in 2019 by Future Agro Challenge and Technology Pioneer in 2018 by World Economic Forum. Deepak is a member of expert panel of World Economic Forum on digital transformation. He works on using cutting-edge technologies, including machine learning, blockchain, geospatial, computer vision, drones, and IoT for improving profitability and productivity of marginal farmers. Initiatives undertaken under his leadership has increased productivity of farmers' fields, reduced their cost of cultivation, and catalyzed sustainability of cultivation. Deepak is an advisor for many private, public and multilateral organizations in agricultural and technology domain. He's a regular speaker. If you see his LinkedIn profile, you will find him almost, of course, no pandemic times is stationed. Otherwise, on every alternate day, you will see him speaking at some or the other platform. So he's a regular speaker at Global Agricultural Summit, Greece, African Innovation Week, Ethiopia, World Economic Forum Annual Meeting of Champions, that's Mini Davos at Tianjin, World Economic Forum ASEAN, Hanoi, World Economic Forum Africa, South Africa. So Deepak, you're welcome for this great talks, and thanks for taking out time. Both of you have been, hectic. You returned from travel last night, late night, and Unni is still in Dubai, sitting in his hotel. Unni, I'm sorry that you had to miss your lunch. I'm sure you can grab something in between. Yeah.
That's okay. We are in agile times.
Yes. And now coming to Ray Talks. See, Ray Talks is a unique proposition which we started from Ray Consulting. Ray Consulting, I started about a decade ago. After 25 years stint in agri industry, having worked with companies like Rallis India, Chemino, which is FMC now, PI Industries, and Nagarjuna Fertilizers Group. I felt there was a space for agri consulting in India, and we could do with an integrated platform in the agri domain. Our deep agribusiness sector expertise and growth strategy development capabilities enable us to deliver uniquely rich insights that lead to meaningful impact to our clients on growth strategy, M&As, go-to-market commercial strategy for the business performance improvement. Ray Talks, I'm happy that is the only contributing web series happening since April 25th on every Saturday religiously on ag value chain, and probably the only show in the world which is dedicated to the agricultural value chain so regularly. The series invites leaders like you from across the section of AgriValue to share their experiences and guide to the stakeholders. We are so excited. Currently, Ray Talks has got audiences from over 35 countries. So that's the power of, I would say, you guys who come on my show, take out your time, and this is absolutely a pro bono show with entirely managed by Ray Consulting. But yes, we feel happy, all of you feel happy when you give back what we have to this thing. So this is a small way of contributing from Ray Consulting so that people from across, we have from students to researchers to corporate guys, consultants, and who not. Sometimes we get even teachers on board to listen to us. We get non-agri people to learn from us, and they come back to and say, Raj, you gave me an idea to start something new in agriculture. So that's a phase we have come to. So with these two things, with introduction to you and about Ray Consulting, Deepak and Unni. So let's start the session with few kind of gupshup hum log ke beech mein. Yeah. So let me start. Though today's topic is on global perspective and how digitization can work. We were fortunate. Of course, I had then invited Deepak. Ray Consulting had held a unique, beautiful Digital Ag India conference on February 4th in 2020 in Park Hyatt, Hyderabad. And we had who's who coming in. Government of Telangana has taken special interest in this. Minister of Agriculture participated. Mr. Jayesh Ranjan was there for valedictory function. And he specifically said, Raj, look, let's make a report of this conference. Let us not go in vain. And we did a report and submitted to him and rest of the stakeholders. And so many things that has come out from the digitalization conference. So since then, we have been working on, because I personally feel digitization is one subject, technology is one subject which will bring everybody together under one umbrella, whether a farmer or a technocrat or corporates like us. So let me start with Deepak to my first question. Deepak, you've been traveling across the world. I wanted to understand why the food security is center of discussion, especially today. And World Food Program is awarded Nobel Peace Prize. Now, like you, I am also consultant, and now I get a lot of inquiries, especially from like where Rooney is sitting today in the United Arab Emirates, Gulf countries, most of the Southeast Asian countries. I have had a speaker, CS Liu from Singapore. He said, "Okay, Raj, now Singapore is looking forward to get into agriculture. They're all worried. They say, okay, now we don't know if no food, what will happen? How long should we be depending on others?" So, Deepak, can you take us through about the security and stuff like that, food security?
Yeah, sure, Raj. Thanks for inviting me here, and it's honor to be like sharing screen with Unni. I learn a lot from him. Like one of the, I'll say that the most clear voice in this industry, right? So it's an honor only to be sharing screen with you. In fact, we also had a program. I did a show with Unni, and it was very much appreciated because of the clarity of the insight he brings on the table. So having said that, I would try to add value, because when talking in his presence, believe me, it is like you're talking in front, a student talking in front of expert. So still I'll take that liberty to do that. So you're right, Raj. Actually, the challenge is that when the COVID happened, typically in March, right, the world was caught totally in a surprise, right? uh, and there are various stages and phases of COVID, the way it impacted the agriculture economy. First to fall was that actually those countries where actually they were importing a substantial part of their food. So as soon as when the supply chain started getting broken, right, suddenly you find that Dubai is having a challenge to import wheat from Ukraine, right? Suddenly you start seeing that actually the beautiful dragon fruit which was coming from Indonesia to a good hotel in Dubai, just it was not moving. So that created first level of panic. Those countries which were importing substantial part of their food, they start getting panicky, and that's why you see that suddenly the Israel UAE also getting on table together, because they can understand that when you are importing 80% of the food, you need to change that scenario. The Saudi, Jordan, UAE, they had these challenges, but they have definitely done very well in coming out of that challenge. But that was the first part of it. The second challenge started in where the food was produced in plenty. So typically Brazil and US, suddenly they started seeing that actually because of the broken supply chain, the farmers were not able to push the food out of their actually the local locations. So Brazil, you started seeing that there was huge amount of inventory, but food was not moving. And then actually you started seeing the third level of impact when the global hunger index, right, it started deteriorating. So if you see the World Food Program and as well as the FAO is saying that there are 270 million people who are food insecure today, while before COVID it was 135 odd. So we have doubled the number of people who are food insecure. Coming back home in India itself, if you see the demography of different locations, right? Those states which were producing sufficient amount of food, they had oversupply of the food which was not moving because of the restriction of the lockdown. And then suddenly you had the states where actually you had demand were not taken care of, and then suddenly there were local level hyperinflation. So these things make us think again that are we living in a world which can sustain itself going forward? So that is what actually has made the food security a big challenge. One of the reason actually why the Nobel Peace Prize was given to the World Food Program was for a simple reason. You found that peace and food are connected. Food and hope are connected. Now, when you disengage both of them, then you have a chaos. The majority number of people who are food insecure, they are in conflict zones. Or I'll say that where food is not there, conflict starts. So it's very important for the world peace that we have people who are having their filled stomach. And that is why actually it is something which is in center. Even on personal level, when we like people, we say that let's go for a lunch, right? So food brings that, I'll say that it's a global language of compassion. And with the food security coming in a severe stress, I believe world would be having a huge challenge going forward. And now this was the history, right? Now let's even understand what's going to happen in future. Now, currently you are seeing that suddenly we were happy that COVID has gone down. We are having recovery phase. You start with Europe. It goes to the second stage, right? What is a second wave. Then US, you had 100,000 cases yesterday itself. So India, Delhi, right? You are having close to 7,500 odd cases, which is increasing while we talk. Now, the challenge is that world doesn't know when it is going to end. In April, we were thinking it is going to end in September. In September, we were thinking it might end in December. But today, we don't know when it is going to end. So as a practitioners, right, we need to find a way forward that we have to start changing this agriculture ecosystem from today, right? We cannot wait even for tomorrow. Why? Because we don't know when this pandemic is going to last. We don't know when the, like, you know, your vaccine would be available. So we have to live with it. And to live with it, we'll have to shorten the supply chains. So we'll have to start eating more food which is produced locally. We have to ensure our farmers are empowered locally. Even I am saying of input side, company like Bayer are doing tremendous work, and they are working very closely with the farmers to enhance their capability in understanding the overall market economics and dynamics, creating market linkages. So those activities, I believe, like, you know, the input companies like Bayer or BASF, those who believe in so that sustainable agriculture, they'll have to put more stake in making this ecosystem survive. Because if you see, even, like, you know, on the input side, in March, there was sudden fluctuation in the price of the fertilizers, because China, Wuhan, the Hubei province, which produced more than 40 to 30% or 40 to 45% of DAP, right? It went down. So there was sudden, I'll say that, escalatory pressures on the rest of the world. Then actually came the agrochemicals, typically the pesticide. When Europe had the challenges, you were seeing in India the hoarding happening. Like a lot of retailers started hoarding because they believe that it's not going to open up. So these challenges are going to be there. We have to think together, like, you know, how to find the solution so that we make both input and output supply chains as short as possible, as local as possible. That is my limited intervention.
Amazing. That was a very detailed one, Deepak. Now I'll go to Unni. We heard from Deepak Unni about, you know, the reasons why we need to get into food security. Now I have a thing, you know, you come from the digitization background, rather practicing background. How has COVID impacted the global food and agricultural value chains? Sorry, it's not the question for Deepak. For Unni, what are digital technologies and their impact on farming?
Yeah, so I think, you know, digital, even much before COVID, already started to make a lot of inroads into, you know, agriculture in general. Only thing is, it was not directly visible to a lot of farmers. You know, more than a decade ago, companies started to invest in digital infrastructure, primarily to know more about the, you know, the genealogy of the seeds, understanding exactly which gene combination is driving a certain behavior of the plant. For example, which one is influencing the overall yield, which one is helping with the ability to resist drought, which one is influencing the capability to fight pests. So all these different analyses were being done, and a huge amount of data was created analyzing all these gene structures of various plants, and which is producing food, and they are now all mapped. And there are various agricultural input companies, global companies, and they basically have digital mapping of the gene structure of all these different you know, varieties at this particular point. While that particular process has helped tremendously, I don't think it was completely visible to the general public. So for instance, I can explain you that in the past, if Bayer was needing around 500 acres of land to develop a new hybrid because of the different, you know, seasonalities and permutations and combinations, we need to test it out so that the regulatory authorities will approve the hybrid. With the digital technology, we are able to reduce that throughput time, which used to be 5 to 7 years, to 2 to 3 years. And also the amount of land which is needed to do this testing in the physical environment has also dramatically dropped. So that actually helps us to seed more land for other purposes rather than doing only for R&D purposes. So that is the, you know, the back end of the entire digitization process. Where it is starting to become more and more visible is when it starts to disrupt the supply chain, when it starts to disrupt the way farmers actually grow the crop. It starts to disrupt the way farmer actually sells his produce to the market. And it disrupts when the consumers actually buy the product of the farmer through the technology. So that is where we are seeing more and more digital domination or digital penetration into this entire ecosystem, right? So that is one way of looking at it. And obviously, if you really look at what kind of change technology has brought in when it comes to the entire value chain, that is very fascinating. For instance, very simple. One of the biggest challenge farmers face in countries like India has to do with the counterfeit. There are very, very good seeds available, and then you get a copy of it. Very, very good pesticides or, the fertilizers available, and then there is a copy of it. How do you really validate what you're buying is authentic or not, right? In many cases, some of these pesticides are also harmful to nature. So it's not only just a money part of it, but it's also harmful even from a safety perspective. So how do you make sure that you are buying an authentic product? And that is where technology comes in. That is where QR codes are there on each and every primary pack of our product, where people can just use a smartphone and scan it and validate whether it is genuine or not. That is a simple application. The other one is that if there is a food which you are buying from a supermarket, you want to know from where it is actually grown and what kind of agriculture practices have been applied and how safe is this food, right? It's a consumer's right to know. How do you enable it? And that's where the blockchain technology comes in, where again, every intervention that the farmer actually makes in terms of when the fertilizer was applied, how much was applied, when the pesticide was applied, how much was applied, what are the standards followed in growing, all those information as and when it happens, it gets uploaded into the cloud environment, and it's basically in an unmutable status. That is how it gets stored. And because of that unmutability, you basically are able to give with 100% confidence to consumers ability to scan through that information and get it validated, saying whatever I am eating is safe. That is consumers part of it. Now, when you look at the real farmer, we all have seen what happened during COVID, and especially in India, farmers could not go to mandi. Why? Because mandi was shut down because of COVID. And then there was farmers sitting there and consumers sitting hungry. And how do you basically link these two? That is where technology came in. There were suddenly spontaneously WhatsApp group getting created in various housing societies where people could go and say, hey, I want this, all kinds of leafy vegetables or fruits or whatever they want. And then there is a farmer also being part of that particular group who basically happily brings it from his farm fresh to the society and meeting the needs. That essentially opens up a completely new platform, which was not possible in the past due to all kinds of constraints. But as government changes, the new regulations are putting in place, this is going to be the norm moving forward. Farmers can decide where they want to sell, at what price they want to sell, and they basically have the right to do so. So automatically, digital is the backbone which is making these dreams a reality. And if we have to really double the farmer's income by 2022 or whatever, it is possible only on the back of digital technologies and nothing else.
I just want to take a little extension of this. You covered from the consumer point of view so well. Traceability is here to stay. Like most of the modern farming, when I say modern farming, where especially guidance is involved and advisory is involved, where aggregators are buying the produce, like any farms or stuff like that.
Yes.
What I want to know is, see, from the consumer's point of view, the traceability is working. From value chain or supply chain management is working. What I would like to understand is how, in case, we know that for all the farmers who produce in India is not under the traceability government.
Correct.
Mostly horticultural crops are part of the traceability, especially fruits and vegetables, not the other row crops or stuff like that.
Yes.
From digitalization point of view, if a common farmer, and we look at typically Asian and African countries, we have small and marginal farmers. How would a farmer be benefited, or how does he practice in a simple way digitalization?
Yes, very, very interesting question. Thanks for that, Raj. So number one, what we have to realize is that there are companies and individuals with deep domain knowledge when it comes to farming. How do you really farm in such a way that you get the maximum yield? How do you really plan for the risk and manage those risks? There are knowledge available. what is missing at this particular point is a medium through which this knowledge can be made available to the farmer
Yes.
in a format in which they can consume it and action it. And I call it as an actionable intelligence.
Yes.
That is what is necessary. Now, the second part is we also need to look at the profile of the farmer and then determine what is the best mechanism through which that information can be passed on to the farmer. And that is where we need to look at the entire universe of farmers. And you will find that there are progressive farmers who are very comfortable, who are educated and can use a smartphone. There are farmers who are basically, in an older demography and basically is comfortable in using a feature phone, and can talk over the phone and listen to messages which comes in, for example. And you basically need farmers who is looking for someone face to face, because getting these kinds of critical information through a device and then just blindly following is not something which people are very much used to. So there is an element of face-to-face interaction too. So all these three different categories we need to analyze and then come with a strategy of tackling them. So when it comes to these progressive farmers, we basically have a lot more technological advancement and capability for publishing apps, publishing content, monitoring the contextual information of the farmer, understanding exactly which geolocation the farmer is operating, which kind of crop he is growing, what is the acreage. Because of the geolocation, we know what is the climate profile of the farmer where he is actually growing. All these type of contextual information actually helps an AI engine to understand how a certain situation a farmer is potentially going to face can be tackled, and how to simplify the information in such a way that it comes as a small capsule of information which he can read,
Yes.
and he can take in information. So that is possible because of the advanced set of phone the farmer is using. Now, let's take the farmer who is not having a smartphone, but he also has exactly the same need, because most of the marginal farmers are using a feature phone. During COVID, the adoption has gone higher. So that actually, lessens the problem, but it's still existing. So we need to make sure that we are able to provide information to these farmers too. And that is where we are using SMS and IVR technologies to send information to these farmers. And there are many farmers who actually calls in and they disconnect and the system calls back, provides all the information they are looking for. On top of all these things, we from Bayer are also launching multiple initiatives to tackle the face-to-face challenge we are all talking about. Because why should someone trust an information coming without knowing the source of it? And we all know, farmers are notorious in making choices, right? I mean, unless and until they see someone face-to-face, they basically are not going to take it. They will always take it with a pinch of salt. So we as Bayer, for example, has launched something called a Better Life Farming in India. And that essentially is all about farmers for farmers, and we act as an enabler. And which means that a progressive farmer, a youngster who has got a fire in the belly, wants to do some entrepreneurship, we train them and we provide support to them, and we ensure that they basically are able to provide the service and support to the catchment areas in what we call as a Better Life Farming Center. So it's just a small retail shop, but in that Better Life Farming ecosystem, we ensure that all the support necessary for that particular Better Life Farming Center is provided, whether it is all the ag inputs which we have, or whether it's fertilizers, whether it's irrigation, or whether it is related to machinery. We ensure that we have partners in that ecosystem who is available at the touch of a button for the we call it as agro entrepreneur. That's a person, and he basically can offer services to all the farmers around his community. And because it is coming from a face-to-face interaction to the farmer, the same information which we otherwise would provide through smartphone or feature phone can come through a face-to-face. So it's a scalable model without a linear increase in cost, but serving the purpose. So this is how we are actually tackling the issue. It's easy said than done. We are of course, in an early phase, testing out various scenarios, we see that this combination of actions we take can definitely make an impact.
I think, see, talking about from buyer's contribution or the practicing factor, I was fortunate, our Kohei Sakata-san,
Yes.
sits in Singapore. I was fortunate, I would say when it's fortunated, we interacted with him in one of the conferences in Jakarta, Indonesia last year.
Yes.
We attended, we did a conference together. And later, I've also been working, trying to get a lot of details from Rohit Mahini also in Bayer. Bayer is certainly, one of those pioneers who has taken a lead in digitization, and I think a lot of things to offer from your end. I'll come back to you, Uni. I'll move to Deepak now, back to COVID, Deepak. So Deepak, see, having heard from Uni, the intervention stuff like that, but still, from our point of view, COVID has changed everybody's life. I mean, right? Anybody's life and everybody's life. Can you kind of, what you feel, how has COVID impacted the global food and agricultural value chains?
Okay.
Both from the developing world and so-called developing world.
Yes, sure. So as Unni was telling, the digitization, that the best part is that some part of the world, they have already adapted digitization before COVID. I'll just give an example of China. So China in 2013, they actually started the very, very innovative concept of actually digital village in 2013. So they started actually digitizing a lot of their farmers, and they have a huge number of internet broadband users in rural areas as well. They were using agri-business e-commerce done by the small farmers or the local people, as well as a lot of information, including the traceability, was also done actually in China, started in 2013. So that's why they've actually, when we talk today, even with the COVID, you'll find that the impact of COVID on the value chain within China has been very, very minimal. Right. One part is definitely their infrastructure, that is physical infrastructure, which is very robust. Second part is also the digital infrastructure. Developing world, the challenge is that actually we still have not been able to get a decent internet bandwidth to our farmers, right? Which is the first stage of digitization itself. So that is the reason that actually our supply chains have been pretty fragile, because it depended a lot on the physical movement of information, right? Where actually a retailer doesn't know whether the dealer is having product or not, and dealer doesn't know the factory when it is going to ship the product, and in case they have shipped, where the product is. So all these created very, very brittle value chain in India, both on the input and as well as output side, which gave a very, very, I'll say that, field time for people who are with the dubious intentions, right? So you suddenly have mushrooming of a lot of fake product. In fact, my own understanding on local market is that actually generally FICCI says that 20-25% of agri inputs are fake in India. It has gone to the level of 40 to 45% actually during the COVID time, right? So suddenly you find 40%, 50%, 60% jump in the fake, depending on which part of country you're talking about, right? Suddenly you find that Bihar, it had a big problem of fakes, huge problem during COVID. Maharashtra and Gujarat and Punjab were a little bit at a better stage than these states. So now when you see that developing world, the 150 countries, they reacted very differently, or they were at a very different stage than typically 50 odd countries. Even in US, they were able to manage, right, based on the government policy of creating food security for people who are not having access to food. So they were very, very fast in actually identifying from where to give the food. They were very fast in rationing the meat, which was supposed to be given. You are finding the queues of cars to procure subsidized or free meat, right? That was possible because the things was already digitized, right? So the government knew that this store would be having, say, 100 metric tons of such and such food produced, and we can supply. In India, we had no clue, right, what is going where, because except the headquarters, nobody was having data, right? So again, same way in Africa, I was telling you just before we started this talk, Chad actually, that country is bleeding because of the brittle supply chain, and their 12 to 15% of GDP is based on cotton. And suddenly you have the cotton value chain breaking, and you're sitting with an inventory. The money has already been spent with the farmers, and they don't have money because they're not able to sell. Now, these things are gonna, I think, make all of us think again, that are our supply chains, value chains robust enough to take such as shocks, right? And believe me, we need to take care of it. And I love one thing when actually just connecting the dots, only talk about the Better Light initiative, like, multi-stakeholder approach. If we don't do it, believe me, like, we'll keep on talking. Maybe after 3 years or 5 years, some other thing will hit the agriculture industry, and again we'll talk and we'll come to the same conclusion that we should have done something better 5 years back. Now, multi-stakeholder approach is very critical, and that is where you'll find that institutions like World Economic Forum, right? They're having an initiative called Artificial Intelligence for Agriculture Innovations in India. They are working with government of Telangana. I'm also part of their working committee. So, like, private sector, public sector coming together, because otherwise we'll, like, we all have our own capabilities, strengths, right? We'll have to collaborate to bring those strengths together. Or we can keep on blaming all the time, like, government has done what they can, making a policy, right? Now, if we expect that government will ensure that, doubling of the farmer income will happen only if they give money to the farmer, believe me, we are living in an utopian world. We'll have to empower them to ensure that their food loss is reduced. 30% our value chain already eats away as a losses, right? Can we put that 30% to the pockets of farmer? Believe me, if you do that, right, you'll already be increasing income by 50 to 60%. Second part, there is huge amount of money wasted because of wrong recommendation of the fertilizer and pesticides, misapplication, fake product. We reduce that, you'll add another 30% reduction of cost of the cultivation for the farmer, right? Now I'm already 80%, believe me, like, and then actually, like, connecting the dot using the traceability where what product is, right? You add another 30%. Believe me, I've already added 108% to the farmer. Now, this is possible when we start sincerely saying that transparent digital system is required. And that is the only solution. As Unni said, that is the only solution. Otherwise, like, we can talk till the cow comes back home, right? And we'll come to the same conclusion that 22 has already become 24. Right? It will become 28, then eventually it will become 35, right? Still, the doubling of farmer income, it will be a pipe dream if you don't do that. Now, if you can see that, we have already started talking 24 now, right? Now, if you see that, in most of the speeches, it is not 22, it is updated to 24, right? So that will eventually become 35 or maybe 50, right? Provided we take right steps, and the supply chains are the biggest problem, believe me. Like, it's not with the farmer, problem is not with the private sector, problem is not with the government. The problem is the overall ecosystem, the value chain, and for that all need to come together.
No, very well said, Deepak. See, in my previous last Saturday's Ray Talks, we had Joint Secretary Mrs. Shobita Biswas coming in, and then along with Kesavan, who was heads chair of agriculture in FICCI. So that's exactly we felt. I said, doubling a farmer's income doesn't mean that the farmer has to produce double on the field. Saving a rupee, earning a rupee. So a lot of these gaps, if we can look into, as you said rightly, about recommendations, thanks to the agri startups who are into now agri input supplies also, they're not just supplying the agri input, but they're also kind of educating the right thing, the right place at the right time. So that probably will go a long way. I'll continue with the same tempo with you, Deepak. Another extension of what we're speaking is, what are the key digital technology trends which would impact agriculture in future? And in your view, what technologies are available to ensure food security? Because we are talking about food security. So what are the technologies you feel would be available for food security globally?
Sure. So actually, some of the technologies which very rightly have been already described by Uni, right? I'm a big fan of blockchain because I believe, like, it makes the trade fair, it creates transparency in the system, and it collects the data, and the data can be monetized. So another aspect of making farmer earn more, I'll give you an example. In Indonesia, I was interacting with a very good friend, Regi, who is having a company called Hara.io. Now that company actually pay farmer for sharing digital information about the pest on their field. They pay farmer, right, in case they are uploading photographs of the growth of their crop, right? So now the farmer data can also be monetized, right? And believe me, like, Unni knows better than me that actually the farmer data is gold if it is collected in the right way, right? Shared in the right way. So farmer can earn money even by sharing, like, their agriculture practices and what they're doing on the farm. And blockchain can enable it. Right, that's very critical. And any high value asset in agriculture, for example, I was a keynote speaker at very recently concluded event called MedCan, which is cannabis industry, medical cannabis industry. Now they are very high value products. Or for example, I was in Iran working very closely with one of the corporation there for traceability of saffron. Now there are at least 15% of the food products which are high asset products, which cost you close to, like, $300, $400 a kg types and above. Now, blockchain makes traceability as well as, like, tokenization of that asset possible. And I believe that will also be a very, very critical factor going forward, and one technology to look at. That is also, for example, can remove the fakes, right? Now, we are already having technologies like, RFIDs and QR codes and all that, but they have some limitation. Unless you don't have public-private key encryption technology, which blockchain brings on table, right? 100% removing fake is not possible. So, but in case you are having high value product in input side, right, which are say 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees, 100 ml or 100 gram, those type of product, if they come on blockchain, it will ensure that actually there are zero fakes in the market. So I'm a big fan of blockchain technologies, and going forward, I see that it will be having more impact. Another area blockchain will impact substantially would be actually those type of food which are actually sustainably developed. For example, we are having responsibly grown palm. Right, organization which certifies that the palm has not been grown in forest or in an area which is actually prohibited. And there actually the certification, right, is only possible you bring in technology like blockchain. Otherwise, like, you'll still have that mess which is going on. That certificate can be issued without sufficient due diligence. Same way, like, there are crops which the Brazil is trying to, like, take away the Amazon forest. People don't want to cut, right? And believe me, like, crops like rubber, palm, tobacco, these are the crops actually, like, which are taking away a lot of forest, tropical forest, right? And palm is like 60% of whatever the food you eat, right? Packaged food, it will have palm somewhere. So these are some of the crops which can totally destroy your environment. And already initiatives are there, but to make those initiatives more appealing, right, you need blockchain. And second is the organic revolution, right? When we talk about everybody wants to have organic product, but now whether that product is organic or not, right, that can be only certified if you are having right technology in place to ensure that from the farm gate going to your plate, everything is actually going through in a way where it is transparent, where it is cannot be, like, manipulated, and where the blockchain plays a very important role. That's one part of it. Secondly, there has been a lot of talk. In fact, we have also practiced the machine learning to, like, predicting a lot of things for the farmer, typically farmers recommendation. The challenge is that today farmer has been doing agriculture in what it used to do 15-20 years back. Now, if you want him to change a crop, right, suddenly he gets panicky because he doesn't know. He has just grown rice. He doesn't know anything else, how to grow, like, maybe, like, coffee or any other crop. Now, they're actually, like, by understanding his agroclimatical zone, type of his land, his previous practices, you need to create a customized farm plan for him so that he can execute it. And because he knows how to till, he knows how to do the seeding, he knows how to do the harvesting, but he doesn't know actually at what date, what time I should be doing it, and what should be the contextual parameter around it. And here I believe that machine learning and artificial intelligence play a very, very vital role. And I won't be surprised if soon I'll have a buyer having the bots flying, not selling the chemicals, but the bots going and just spraying the pesticide. I've seen some example in South Asia, buyer has been doing it. And these type of technology, you'll suddenly find that, like, we'll have a lot of scalability. And that is the biggest challenge in digital agriculture so far. People are not able to scale. Because actually you try to solve a very small problem in a very niche area, and then it is not, like, possible to scale it. But I believe blockchain, AI, and ML in typically farm support, I won't say just extension service, but farm support. These are two areas I believe, like, are very critical going forward in agriculture. And definitely I'll have the experts word on that. Unni, please correct me in case you feel that I have erred somewhere.
No. I think you're absolutely on the dot. And these are going to be the bedrock of technology components, which is going to really enable a lot of things which you want to achieve in agriculture. Absolutely, yes. Yeah. The only thing I will add to that one is basically you already touched on it, which is drones. And it's not just drones. It's about the fact that you can actually increase or decrease elevation of the sprayer the way you like it. So you can apply it on anything you want, whether it is a citrus fruit tree, or whether it is a flat crop like rice and wheat. You can customize it and configure it the way you want it. But the power of drone comes not in that. The power of drone comes when it becomes smart spraying. And what, when we start to look at the disease detection, it is basically on the periphery of the farm. We look at it and say how severe the infection is, and then the dosage is determined based on that. However, now imagine that a scout drone takes off and then surveys the entire field, comes back with a normal RGB, an infrared, and you have an NDVI imagery coming back. And then based on that, you analyze it with the thermal imagery. You can very clearly see where exactly you have the highest level of infestation and where it is not. And accordingly, you can, now program the drone in such a way that in the area where it is highly infested, you spray it at a different level and dosage compared to the other areas where it is not. So that actually ensures that crop protection as a service is there. The farmer's crop is protected, but at the same time being environmentally a lot more responsible, because you will spray only what is absolutely necessary. And similarly, the same mechanism can be applied for water, for irrigation purposes, because there is no reason for you to just go and flood everywhere. You can apply where it is absolutely necessary and where it is not.
I think good validation from both the sides. I just want to go back, to two things. Deepak, you mentioned about, blockchain. Yes, incidentally, most of us, we relate blockchain only to the cryptocurrency for some reason or the other. So most of us don't know, including me, what wonders it can do. So probably someone has to educate this further how it is. Otherwise, even in again, if you see the digitalization, the requirement of the Western world or the developed world is different than what our farmer requirement. That's exactly earlier the question of it.
Yes.
So from there, I see a lot of companies like Bayer, UPL, and many other companies, even smaller companies, they are moving from product selling to solution providing, a complete service factor. And maybe with this, one of the reforms laws which has come out recently with the contract farming, when large farms can be aggregated. Small farms can be aggregated and brought together. So we will play a huge role in here. So yes, it's an amazing thing that would happen. Uni, I back to you. See, there are so many disruptive technologies, which are coming up, and you feel which are the ones which will make an impact in farming operations from your experience?
Yeah, I think digital image processing is going to be one of the most critical one as far as the real farm. Even a marginal farmer level, you can have an impact, because what we all have to realize is that a farmer, whether it is a commercial farmer or a small farmer, a marginal farmer, the type of risk and challenges they face are exactly the same, because both of them are growing plants. Only difference is scale. Right? So the potential disease, exposure and the risk exposure is the same. So if a farmer is able to take his smartphone and then click when he sees a certain set of pattern on the leaf and can get exact detection of the disease and what needs to be done to fix that particular issue, that is going to be of tremendous value to farmers. Because many a times what happens today is that the farmer sees some pattern, he basically takes that particular leaf and goes to a retailer and shows to the retailer, says that, hey, this is what I see in my field, what should I do? And the retailer, of course, whatever he has in his stock is the one he will recommend, saying go and spray it. But it has nothing to do with the, with the pest or the bacteria or virus which is attacking. So making sure that the farmer is able to detect and understand exactly what is the challenge he is facing, and also understanding the recommended approach to solve that problem with a scientific basis is going to be the key here. And that is going to be one of the most important one when you are really looking at on the farm operations are concerned. The other one, I think Deepak also alluded to this earlier, there are many farmers who knows how to till and how to plant, but doesn't know exactly when. But we all know that there is a window to put the plant on the ground, right? The POG, we call it. And yes, that window is something which can vary depending upon, especially in a rain-fed environment, it is essentially the nature's decision exactly when do you run to the farm and start planting it, right? Now, if there is a digital technology which can give the farmer at least 24 hours notice, saying that, my dear friend, you go and do this now, you will get the best result out of it. That can tremendously help them, because when the seed is put into the into the field at the right time, essentially ensures the highest level of yield also at the end of it. So there are, in our approach, we basically have done the full analysis of to the farm, on the farm, beyond the farm. That is the three categories we are taken. And we also have looked at the various, pre-planting, planting, in season, and then harvest and post-harvest. These are the phases. We had actually analyzed all kinds of challenges farmers face in these different phases, right? And then we identified what we call as 40 decision points. So during the 120 or 90 days window, a farmer ends up taking around 40 key decisions. Those decisions will have a lasting impact on the end result of his farming business. So from that insight, what we are now doing is digging deeper to that. So for example, selecting the crop, Deepak mentioned about it. Which crop should I go for? Because what happens in India, for example, is if this year someone has not planted a particular crop, there is a shortage. And guess what? Next season, everybody goes for the same crop and the price crashes. The reason is because there is no clear advice to the farmer exactly based on his geogrammatic conditions, which one should he grow. And the government doesn't have an infrastructure through which they can actually advise farmers saying that, hey, this is the total capacity we need, and make sure that you guys are farming this particular produce and somewhere else we produce something else, right? In an ideal situation, this is the way it should be, so that everybody starts to get benefit out of it, rather than somebody gets a crashed price and then throwing tomatoes on the road, and the next time you don't have anything like onion right now with 100 rupees a kg. This variation can be addressed only when you have a structured way of allowing farmers to select what they should go for as a crop. Once you select the crop, the next question is, which is a hybrid should I go for? That again, depending upon the biozones of the farmer, you have to choose. Then after that, these hybrids are going to give specifications in terms of the distance between two crops, two plants, right? So depending upon the hybrid, you might have 1 feet or 10 inches or 15 inches. You need to understand exactly what it is. So at each and every stage, there is an intervention needed and there is information needed. And if we are able to provide those information in a very simple fashion, and farmers are able to follow that rather than what they've learned from their fathers,
yes,
it starts to make an impact.
I think, now see, government is looking, like for example, look at Telangana government this year, they said they have advised which district should go for which crop. They were quite, successful in doing this.
Yes.
Now, Government of India Minister of Agriculture has come out with one district, one product.
Yes.
So probably, we are moving to that direction, but very critical factor that remains is that farmers should be educated on how to cultivate a new crop, because he's not very sure how to cultivate a new crop. So he's going back to the old practice again.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense for you to look at it. Now, Deepak, back to you. We all are bringing out so much technology. Thanks to earlier, it was, when I say earlier, startups had this, zeal to start something nice for that farming. Then thanks to corporates like Bayer, like they are not only kind of guiding, but they're encouraging these startups and in-house technology or research and practicing. But still, what are the challenges you feel feel that farmer is facing to adopt the smart digital farming?
Yeah.
What is encouraging him?
Yeah. So no, actually, I'll say that this is a problem which is, I'll say it's a catch-22 situation, or your hen and the egg problem, right? When we talk about, in fact, like I've founded 3 startups and exited 2, and currently I'm having a startup called Digi Agri, which is actually have been working in multiple countries. See, the biggest question is that startup is always having a limitation of funds, right? And any company or any government would say that, okay, fine, first do a pilot for us, and you spend that money to do the pilot. So I have 2 options. Either I go to the investor, right? And once I go to the investor, he has his own play. Believe me, right? Investor, they are nice guys till they invest in your company. Once they invest in your company, then all things are like, or even if like they are 5% equity holders, still like, they call the shot because they write the check, right? Now, suddenly you'll find that you have to revalidate, change your business model to suit an investor. Or you can be like me, trying to bootstrap, and suddenly you get a COVID and you have 7 months of no revenues, right? And you are having a challenge. So we are over relying on startup, right, to do the technology transformation. Startup They are agile. They are having like, fire in the belly. They want to achieve things faster than the corporation. Those are good qualities. But there are some limitations which startup will be having. And unfortunately, like, whenever you read a story about a startup, is that actually somebody got 2 million funding. You never read a story saying that the startup was able to scale from 100 to 500 farmers. No, we don't see that story, right? So our evaluation of startup is that how much money he has been able to raise. Now, the organization like Bayer, the beauty I like about them, and even Syngenta for that matter, right? They are investing in startup to handhold them to do pilots in which they invest in the pilot, right? Now, that is what I was again circling back to what I said, multi-stakeholder approach. Right, that you will have to see the value which startup brings on the table. You need to have a maturity of having farms, having farmers, having access from a company like Syngenta or Bayer, where you handhold the startup, take it to the field, test it out. If it works, then handhold him to like, scale it up. And that is what actually, like, if you see that Bayer is also having a plan to like, connect so many million farmers globally, same with Syngenta. So I believe these type of initiatives are very critical, and one of the reasons farmer is not adopting new technology is that actually technology is intimidating for him, right? Suddenly I go with and tell him that download an application, right? And see, unfortunately, beauty of today's government is that for everything they make an application, right? So every state is having an application, every program is having an application, right? So farmer himself is confused that actually which application is for. So he end up opening application for a loan when he want to see whether actually what crop I should be growing. So aggregation of those application in a way which is actually not intimidating for him, right? Very simple, right? And that's WhatsApp. All the scheme, all the programs, all the companies can be accessed using an WhatsApp bot, right? So I believe like, you'll have to go where farmer is comfortable. And in the COVID time, when we were interacting with the farmers, the only bright spot we were able to achieve is that actually when we trained 158 farmers to use WhatsApp to sell their produce, right? And all of them were able to sell their potatoes. They might be cursing me now because if I would not have been successful, then they would be having inventory which they could have more price, right? But see, the challenge is that you have to make technology which is simple, which would work in the internet condition which we are having in rural places. Yeah. We have 4G here, it's beautiful, right? When you go to like, a little bit outside of like, city limits, you find that 4G becomes 3G and ultimately becomes 2.5G, right? So in those bandwidths, farmers should be able to use it. And third, very, very important thing, right? Don't charge farmer upfront.
Yeah.
Right? Since 1970, he has been told that your income will increase. Right, green revolution, this revolution, that revolution, now digital revolution. He doesn't trust anyone, right? So he says that just like any input, right? I use it, I trust it, and next time I'll buy it, right? Why? Because I know that this works, right? And that is how you'll find that majority of input companies, they sell their good products, right? Demo farms, successful demo farms, more farmer talking about it, then adopting it. And in technology, suddenly you said that, hey, I'll charge you $50 per annum per hectare, right? But it doesn't work. Believe me, like, it doesn't work that way. And that is where I believe, like, this multi-stakeholder approach, simple technology to use and go where the farmer is and ensure that you gain their trust by offering the service for 2 to 3 seasons at no cost. And then you have a successful digital agriculture roadmap. That's my view.
So I think this has also come out very well in our Digital Ag India conference in February. The 3 factors which you just mentioned. One is, how do you bundle it, all these technologies into one app or one platform? Sometimes you see this, Amitabh Bachchan's one of the ads showing, removing all the apps and uploading one app. Something like that, it should happen. And the second part which you said is, farmer, as you rightly said, agri input. I know I'm buying a pesticide, I'm buying a seed, I'm buying something. So he sees physical thing, he's willing to pay. But when it comes to kind of a thing, who has to build it? So that is something, again, we discussed deliberate in a big way. It has to be factored in one of the services or the products which you are offering. So the farmer doesn't feel the pinch, but he still gets the services. The second part. And the third part, which is very, critical here, is that you need to put all the all the things into one. And you need to put, someone has to pay. Very important here is that he should feel or he should see the visible difference because of this. He should see the visible difference. Yes, I have used this. That's been seen with many of the farmers who are trying to adopt and get the things done. Great. Back to Uni again. I'm enjoying this time. Guys, I would like to share something very interesting observation thing. Very, very interesting observation. When webinar, Ray Talks, any webinar starts, the attendance is full in the beginning. And it's about an hour since we started talking. And then, people have some commitments or some of the other things, especially, weekend. So they start moving out. Very interesting observation with both of you. The number is increasing instead of decreasing. That means the word is spread outside. Guys, come and join. Deepak and Uni are talking something extraordinary. Hats off to you. This is something unique. I was just watching on the number. You must have also seen how the number is going up. It's a very unique thing. I would really compliment. I'm honored to have you guys here for this. Yeah. So, Uni, back to you with the thing. How can India frame policies which can strengthen the agrarian economy? Might not be directly related to the digitization, but overall agrarian economy.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a very wide topic, Raj. If I really look at it, and also there is competing interests, and we all know what happened in the political landscape when this law was recently amended, right? And everybody understands the logic behind it, and I don't think anybody with a rational mind would ever challenge it. But there are political compulsions which comes from different angles, and that actually, the reason I'm just bringing it up is basically so that the audiences can understand the competing set of interests which are out there. So if you just go back a little bit and look at where exactly this Essential Commodities Act and this whole, the amendment to the act, which is now, taking out the mandi from the ecosystem or making it non-mandatory, let me put it that way. It started with the concern around food security.
Yes.
That is where it started, because they were hoarding as a standard practice, inflating prices. And then that is the reason why the law was brought in, where it became illegal to hoard, right? And that also basically provided, that law was essentially provided to secure sufficient amount of pricing for farmers, because these mandis are supposed to be cooperatives for farmers, and they can go and get their prices, because the destiny of those mandis are supposed to be managed by farmers themselves. But we all know what happened over time. It became more and more monopolized, and essentially it became another middleman. That's what happened. So when we look at the total regulatory landscape in India, and what is that which the government can do on its own, I basically would say there is a lot of innovation out there, and there is a lot of possibility to even further innovate within the country, only if the government starts to formulate policies which allows these things to happen. So for instance, we have been dabbling with this idea of GM as a technology, right? So we all know that GM as a technology is safe, and it is used in a lot of different places. And and in India we have used GM as a technology in cotton. And if you really look at it just from an environmental impact perspective, while when the technology introduced, the overall pesticide consumption went down by nearly $140 million, which is basically chemistry which is getting into the ecosystem, which got eliminated, right? So there are a lot of interesting technologies which are out there, and if the government can help bring in those technologies into the hands of the farmer, that only helps their life much better. That's one part of it. The second thing I basically would say is just, and Raj was also, Deepak was mentioning about the same topic. How do you really improvise what I call as the digital building blocks? If you go to the US, for instance, I can get data of weather of a particular district for the last 30 years at the click of button. I don't need to pay anything for it. It's available to me. I can take the data, put it in my model, and then run the model. It will work. Can we get that in India? I don't think so. So getting these digital building blocks, or what you call as digital infrastructure, we need railways and bridges and roads of it digital. in the country, which includes, of course, the reliable 4G network, from where, you know, an IoT device sitting in a field can communicate to a server sitting somewhere in a cloud. That is what is necessary for us. So there are many areas where the government can step in and bring the overall, you know, capability development and capacity building related to these digital building blocks to the next level. So number one, allowing innovation to thrive. Number two, digital infrastructure. This is what I would say, Raj.
See, very interesting point about the data, Uni. I mean, why are we, reluctant to get the data?
Multiple points, once again. There are some people who think that hoarding data on their side is making them more powerful.
Yes.
We all know that sharing data, knowledge is one thing which you share more, you gain more. That's the only thing.
That's exactly I'm doing with exactly. I gain a lot by talking to you guys.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the only commodity which you gain more by giving, right? Absolutely. But there are some people who basically think that, you know, this is an information which I should be holding, for instance, for myself. So I'll give you a very simple example. We have the Mahalanobis Crop Forecasting Center in India. And that institution has got connection to all kinds of government agencies which pulls data, satellite data, ground truthing data, or, you know, and commodity data. A lot of data comes into that particular organization. And they also have capability to forecast, you know, the crops moving forward. If that information is made available to the public, I don't know what is that which is going to be damaging for anyone. I cannot understand. But one thing I can tell you, Raj, if that crop forecasting information is made available, we can go and advise a particular farmer saying that, my dear friend, please grow this particular crop because you will be able to sell your crop, because there will be a balance between demand and supply.
Yes.
But unfortunately, when I approach that institution, I get a reaction saying that, you know, we have regulations which is not allowing us to share this data.
This is the simplest way to doubling the farmer's income.
Exactly. So this is where I'm talking about.
Let me just add to that.
Yes.
I won't be naming the organization because you have already done that.
Yeah.
that saves a little bit of like, you know, because I've been known for being a little bit blunt. Unfortunately, they are more worried that in case data comes out, their incompetencies would be visible. Right. And believe me, I've challenged their data on multiple times. Right. And the data is having huge amount of errors. Right. And sometimes when they say that high vegetable index, more rice would be grown, the same location I found weed. Right. It was not till for 5 years that place was having possibility of high yields of rice. So again, sometimes like it's not that they don't want to, because they believe that the data, if comes out, that the genie would be out of bag, right? And the people will start questioning that. And the validation of the data and I'll say that quality of the data is another challenge. That's why I believe I 100% agree there's a power. Secondly, like, you know, that a lot of data has been just put as that we have that data. Unfortunately, that data is pretty erroneous. And even if you see that even in India, the weather information, this year, most private players have said we are not going to be releasing forecast, right? And the forecast for past 6 years, if you compare, most of them have been off by 7 to 14%, right? But if you question that actually why this data is, then the response you get is that it is at least better than predicting the, like, you know, the bank rate in US. I said bank rate is not going to make someone commit suicide. Right? So if US can be so accurate, right, India can be. But unfortunately, I believe, like, you know, we don't, as a country, we are not serious about the value of data. We might be talking about data as an oil, data as in soil. We give all those nice jargons. But when actually it comes that somebody to put that money, right, you have to spend $16 per farmer, right, for first year to collect sufficient data which will help farmers. Now the question mark is that nobody wants to spend that money.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. See, Jatin Skynet, who was in Digital Ag India conference, and then he was on one of the earlier shows in that's exactly, he says, Raj, mere ko data hi nahi milta. So the quality becomes a challenge for us. Otherwise, we would have given an absolute great solution. Not only just, farmers, but even anything that is related to the weather.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, Deepak, since you mentioned about, the gaps or stuff like that, So what do you feel where the policy or governance gaps in enabling sustainable farming should be coming from?
Yes, first thing that we should be having a very clear guidelines on the data policy, right?
Okay.
That what data can be collected, what data should be made open. So first of all, because the current problem is that if I collect a data, even a tehsildar can come and ask me why you're collecting that data, right? Then I have to tell him that actually there is no law which stopping me doing that, right? To furnish a law which stops me doing that. So it is becoming very much of interpretation. So we need to have a very clear agri data laws. That what can be shared, what can go across borders, what cannot go across borders, right? So that we need a very clear understanding and the law which doesn't need interpretation, which should be very clearly, transparently understandable by everyone. So that's one. Second, when we talk about some of the bills we've been talking about, 3 bills very recently came in, and I strongly believe that actually any sane person would say that actually this bill cannot be wrong, right? And those who are opposing it, actually, if you see their own timeline 5 years back, they were asking the same thing, right? They were asking exactly the same thing, but now somebody who is not politically aligned to you has done it, then you say that this is all bad. So from middlemen, which were actually the bloodsuckers for the farmer, have suddenly become their friends who help them when their kids are getting married for the farmers, right? So again, see, the problem is that actually sometimes we need to keep politics out, right? And believe me, India will serve itself very well if in agriculture we don't get politics, right? Just like your foreign policy, the agriculture policy should be in actually improving going forward rather than actually any short-term knee-jerk reactions. We need to have 20 years, 25 years policy, which every government all sit together, make the policy and continue it. Otherwise, we'll have this struggle of not having the right policy. Third gap, I believe, is that the funding, right? Unfortunately, we believe that we are putting funds in the wrong place. Right. Yes, we need subsidies. Yes, we need a lot of support which farmers are getting, but we'll keep on doing that if we don't actually solve the problem. Now, solving the problem needs data. Where is the data to say that the subsidy is actually helping farmer? Where is the data which says that MSP is right? I'll give you just some couple of data points on MSP. 1925 per ton is actually typically MSP for wheat. The procurement of Food Corporation India adds up to it something around 30 rupees per kg. In Dubai, today commodity last 3 months moving price you see is 16 rupees per kg. Aren't we making our farmers more inefficient by actually trying to promote something which ends up government putting money which is actually a total loss? Then 40 to 50 1,000 metric tons of food has been lost in past 5 years because of the wrong storage. Now, if you add that price also, you're talking about 45 rupees a kg is the procurement price of wheat for government, right? Can you sustain this? You keep on sustaining it, you'll keep on putting money in that, good money for the bad purpose. Now remove that money and put in digitization. I can assure you in 3 years, you'll have doubling of farmer income. I'm not asking them to arrange for some money. Stop that. I'm saying this wastage of that money, put it in the right place and you'll have a happy farmer. But again, politics of India doesn't let that happen, right? But if all the politicians, all the parties come together and everybody said that actually they want, right, farmers to be more efficient, they want the yields to go up. We always say that Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, you'll be surprised, except 2 crops, India's actually yield is lower than the world average. Right? Potato, other crop I forgot. So there are 2 crops in which we are better than the world average. I'm not saying the best in the world average, right? And if we continue doing that, right, what justifies a Telangana farmer with such a drought area growing cotton? Yeah. There is no logic in that. But we keep on continuing some system actually because of political reason we don't want to touch. And believe me, the time has come. COVID has told us that actually if you can stop a country for 3 months, right, put everybody behind the their doors and shutters, right, there is a possibility to do the change which agriculture need today, and we need bold decisions to be taken now.
Yeah. I think coming to this loss, I remember you have posted a couple of months back also about 3-4 minutes your video on LinkedIn. You summed up very well, on all the aspects on it. Now, just soon I will be moderating a group discussion through IIM Ahmedabad on the same subject. But what I felt, when people are speaking pro on it, and there are some people, I won't say again something. Let us understand what are their views. So I am trying to bring all the guys on the same platform. At that point of time, let's see how things will take.
I'll add here. I myself have taken personal initiative to talk to people who were very much against them, and very I won't want to name them, but very senior people who you'll be seeing on TVs very regularly. And believe me, they have been the most intolerant people because they don't want to listen to what you said. You have to agree with them, right? That this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, right? When you put the data in front of them, they said actually like, you are modified. I said, okay, fine. Thank you.
Great. Guys, I'm enjoying talking to you, I think. And I have two last generic questions to both of you. The same question to both of you, whoever feels like answering first and later you can answer. Meanwhile, my dear attendees and participants, delegates, stay on. As usual, I'll take your questions to Deepak and Unni, who would be too happy to answer your questions. So last two questions to both of you. There's a generic question, as I mentioned. When it comes to digital adaptation by farmers, digitalization adaptation by farmers, what do you feel, what steps are required in skill development, whether from the corporates or where the government, like you have got a skill development council, what are the skill development required for the farmer, specifically for the farmer?
Yeah, I basically would say that number one is what I call as digital literacy.
Yes.
Just the fact that it's intimidating for a lot of farmers. When you, first of all, this phone thing is quite expensive. For a farmer, what is coming on his hand is an expensive thing, and you need to be very careful in using it. So how do you really make sure that they are comfortable in using it, right? And the second thing is, how do you make sure that the complexity is hidden away from the farmer and the information is brought to the simplest way they prefer? Like Deepak was mentioning, WhatsApp is a channel through which many people are feeling comfortable because there are many things getting exchanged through that. And if that is the channel, that's the channel, right? We basically start there. And when people start to see more value in using additional features, of course, they will show their own personal level of passion to grow, to learn, and to become more comfortable with more advanced functionalities and things like that. That is one part of it, Raj. The second thing, what I would say is that primarily from a capacity building perspective, really helping farmers to be comfortable with, connecting to an ecosystem and linking up to multiple stakeholders through the phone, because that is going to be the digital infrastructure on which people are going to collaborate. So how do you order a tractor and which can come and do some tilling work in your field? How do you order someone who can come and do some spraying in your field? How do you, connect with a player in the market who can come and acquire your produce? All these things are going to happen on the phone, and slowly but steadily, we need to make people comfortable in using these type of, infrastructure and technology solutions. That is one part of it. The other one I would say is there is also a lot of enabling capability which needs to be developed as well. Like, for example, drone pilots, because drone, once it becomes mainstream, you basically will need certified pilots who can come and spray and register this in a consistent manner. Because remember, all these interventions needs to be captured in an unmutable fashion if you want to have, in the end, the certified quality level produce which can fetch best value for the farmer. So we need to analyze it from that angle, and then finally make sure that those skills are set for priority for development.
Deepak.
See, I don't want to even put a 1% of impurity in what perfectly described by Unni. Right? So I rest my comment with that. It's a perfect articulation.
Awesome. So see, the last questions before I go to audience questions, again to both of you. Having discussed so much, each one of us has brought a perspective to agriculture. What do you think we can, how do you think we can improve the farmers' income over the next decade or maybe 5 years by, of course, technology, inputs, or something like that? Maybe 10 years is a too long period even for 5 years from Indian perspective. Deepak, you can start now.
I follow Unni. Believe me, that makes my life very easy. No, because actually, see, to be very frank, it's a big learning exercise for me also. Listening to what Unni speak,
Awesome.
I always like, it's a lot of understanding for me. So I would just listen to what he said, and in case required, maybe I'll add something. But I think I would love to hear what he says.
Yes. So the way I look at this one is that we always go from a profitability perspective for the farmer, Raj and Deepak. So when you really start to look at agriculture as a business, just like any other business, all of us know how to run our business. We have a profit and loss, we have cost, we have revenue, we basically know what the margin, and that tells us whether it's worthwhile to pursue or not, right? Here, there is a lot more emotions attached to it, and that's what makes it more complex, of course. But very rationally, if you really start to analyze, how do you really increase the income of the farmer? We basically need to look at what is it which is working against the farmer's interest of getting higher income. And a couple of points will be there. Number one, we already discussed at length about the overall yield and how can we increase the overall yield through technology and things like that. That is one aspect. Even when you have a bumper yield, we also referred to earlier what happens if everybody goes and plants the same thing and you have a bumper yield, everybody throws it on the road, right? So that is where the real food processing part comes in. So setting up infrastructure to convert a tomato which can get rotten into a sauce, a tomato sauce or a tomato ketchup, is the one which ensures farmers are getting the sufficient income rather than losing. The second part of it, I would say, is there are many vegetables which are fresh, which we all know can be dried and packaged and then sold. Myself and Deepak had a discussion around this. There are technologies available these days which are solar powered, and it is in a green environment where there is no dust or anything, so it is very safe. And these dried vegetables are also used traditionally in our cuisines all over the place. We all know this, but unfortunately, once again, because farmers are not trained on a structural basis how to set up this drying plant, if you want to call it that, is sophisticated, using solar, making sure that it is in a safe environment which is drying up, and because it is done through an automated unit, you don't need 14 days and 15 days to dry. You can do that in 2 days or 3 days, and automatically you can start to do this in scale. So if there are vegetables which are going to get rotten, instead, if you can get it sun-dried, for example, you can have a sun-dried tomato. Once it is sun-dried, it is not going to rot like normal. It will be available and it's still edible. People can still consume it. Farmers can still get income. So there are a lot of interventions we can do, but these are the couple of things which comes to my mind, Raj.
I think, see, you took me back to my childhood, and even current, my wife Anita follows this. So take simple thing, we call it as an amchur, mango dried powder. We still make it and use it. But aam papad, a lot of with so many things. I think you make a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Why don't you?
There is, I'll give you this simple example. There is a tree called jackfruit tree.
Yes.
Very popular in the south of India. And you can take the pod of it and open it, dry it up, and you can make papad out of it. There are so many different things, and people have a lot of cuisines made out around that. But unfortunately, again, because it is not structured, that knowledge is not captured and stored somewhere, many generations are never introduced to this particular food at all, because your eating habits, your food habit starts to develop when you are young, right? When you are eating it. If you are not at all exposed, you basically become an out of place citizen. Even though there is a lot of food available locally, you don't feel the taste of it. These are the things.
No, true. I mean, in fact, when you speak about jackfruit, now I see a lot of startups coming out with on jackfruit, on moringa leaves and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Amazing chatting with you both. So now I'll open the discussion for our attendees. Please raise your hands, participants who would like to have a word with either me or Deepak. Oh, Sudhir Goyal. I mean, trust me, he's one, I'm sure, he's a senior IS officer, attends almost all of my Ray talks. You would love to talk to him. I think I love to talk. Sudhir Goyal, sir, please go ahead. Honored to have you once again.
So thank you very much. My question is brief. Who is integrating innumerable digital as well as physical agri verticals into a horizontal value chain, connecting farmers to the consumers, not as a charity, but as a business?
Mr. Goyal
Why
has
do
also
we
put
not,
this question in the Q&A box.
and why do we not have such service providers for different stakeholders in a value chain? So why, the question in short is, why there is not a cadre of service providers like you have architects? Can't we have agri architects?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Deepak, you want to take it?
Yeah, let me give it a try. So see, generally businesses, they do businesses when there is a demand. The challenge is that the complexity of the agriculture value chain itself and who will take the hit in case something goes wrong. But that deters a lot of people to be just being an integrators of different, whether it's a technology, physical or digital infrastructure. There is a company, if you have heard about Ninja Cart, right, which aggregates from the farmer and then sells to the businesses. That company went through a lot of challenges because suddenly, because of COVID, demand went away. They had a commitment to the farmers. Right now, anybody who is stuck with 10 crore rupees of inventory of food produce which is perishable, understand that actually you need to have a very, very big war chest. Now, seeing such example, people like me get big deterrence that okay, fine, don't get into it. Why? Because in case something goes wrong, you are stuck with mud on your face and which you cannot actually digest. So that's the risk of that whole game. That makes it very, very difficult for a simple professional, because if you're an architect, right, nothing much is going to happen in case actually you don't get business, you get a job somewhere, right? Here you end up with that inventory, which is a challenge. Third, even the maturity of the ecosystem, right? Our ecosystem is actually, unfortunately, matured politically, not matured actually when we talk about, I'll say that, as a business, organized business, right? There is because I interact with a lot of people in the trade community, and you find that actually, a lot of things just happen because based on the trust, saying knowing a people, okay, fine, right? The trade get executed, on just words. Now, those type of things for youngster like me becomes a little bit of a challenge because we say that actually, we don't understand how this is happening, right? Even the pricing, if you go to mandi, the pricing happens just like, winks and fancies, right? There is no specific structured way of finding whether actually it should be 5 rupees or 15 rupees, right? You walk into mandi, it is 5 rupees a kg, and then actually, after 2 hours, it is 15, and you don't even know actually what has happened. You'll try to check actually, if something happened in the news, is there some challenge? No, nothing has happened in the world, but the price suddenly has gone up by 300% and you have no clue. Now, these challenges, I believe, are what needs to be handled first. Then you'll have a vibrant ecosystem of I'll say that mid-sized player like us getting into it. But yes, definitely for large-sized players like Reliance and Walmarts, right? They can make the market. So you'll find them entering more because of you are having a better policies. Another big challenge is that actually you are looking at investment requirement of $200 billion in Indian agriculture ecosystem. Now that cannot come from the small players, right? You need to get in big players putting in investments to structureize the system, and then maybe after 3 years, 4 years, when that happens, people like me can take a little bit bigger bet. So that's my side of intervention. Only if you want to please add, please.
No, I think you touched all the key points on that one, Deepak. While technologically everything is possible, we are talking about problems of scaling, which has nothing to do with technology. That's what essentially we are talking about. Standing up an infrastructure which essentially allows a seamless exchange of information between a farmer, a distributor, and a retailer. All those things are relatively easily we can achieve. However, how do you really manage the competing interests in between? And how do you really structurally handle the risk, which Deepak has mentioned, a player takes? What sort of a backup that particular person has, in case if things doesn't go as planned? we don't have a structural infrastructure in place to handle those type of things. So those who are going to put their heads out are going to be on their own, and that's the challenge.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Goel. Now let me go to Jyoti Rathore. Are you there, Jyoti?
Jyoti, you are on mute in case you are speaking.
Yeah. Can you unmute? Okay, I'll get back to you, Jyoti. We'll go to Karthikeyan.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, my question is to Mr. Unni. Mr. Unni, very informative presentation on AgTech. Just a question on drone spray.
Karthikeyan, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I belong to organization by name Coromandel International Limited. I work for the retail wing in Coromandel.
Yes.
Mr. Unni, my question is India ready for the drone spray? Because the drone spray requires specialized formulations, not the regular one available in the market can be used. That is one question. Second, as of now, the drone policy is also not clear in India with a lot of approvals from Digi and others. So against this regulatory framework, how do you see the future for this technology?
Yeah, so Karthikeyan, thanks for raising that question. First of all, I basically have two parts to it in your question. One is technology readiness. The second one is regulatory framework. Those are the two aspects you are referring to. From a technology readiness perspective, I can tell you, Karthikeyan, we are ready. At least as a Bayer, there are millions and millions of hectares of land getting sprayed in China or in Southeast Asia. So it's nothing new there. And our formulations are basically mostly international in nature. And those technologies have been sprayed and tested. And we know exactly how to, what combination should be used while spraying through drones. And the effectiveness of it is also already proven scientifically. And we are also doing some R&D testing in India too, with approval from the government to verify exactly the same thing which you are mentioning. So technologically, I think we are very close to scaling it. Where we do have the challenge, of course, is government coming up with not only policy formulations, but once again, the regulatory control mechanisms, how to do it. So for example, if there is a drone which is lifting off, it needs to be approved upfront with all the navigation parameters to the DGCA before it actually takes off, right? Now, how do you bring down all drones at the same time because there is a national security alert coming up, for instance? So those are the infrastructure which needs to be put up in place at this particular point. What we have at this particular point is only the DGCA website where you can go and apply for an approval to fly. And based on the registered drones details, you can register for it and you can get an approval and you can fly. But right now, the Ministry of Agriculture still has not given an assent to drone companies to go and commercially spray as of now in India. And we are all talking to various stakeholders, but it's simply taking time. So once again, the ball is definitely in the court of the government to take the next step. And I think industry players are ready, waiting in the wings to go.
Thanks, Karthikeyan. Next, I'll go to Aminul Islam. Aminul, please unmute and introduce yourself. Aminul Islam, are you there? Okay, by the time I get in, we'll go to Roshan. Roshan Mohammed.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, my question either to Mr. Deepak or Mr. Unni could respond. I'm from Coromandel again, so coincidence. Dr. Aminul also is from Coromandel, so I think the first three speakers are from Coromandel. So the question specifically is, we are seeing a lot of these platforms or many of these technologies coming in from various stakeholders, some new technopreneurs, some from existing large industry players. But what I believe is there has to be a consolidation for a farmer to be getting used. You will have to see some kind of a consolidation and ecosystem getting formed. How do you see the formation of those ecosystem? My part two of the question is scalability. Again, when you see this will have to be adopted locally, or will there be a global solution, or you see that companies will have to develop these tools locally or regionally or country specific, or could there be a global solution? So the two questions that I had.
It's a nice question, Roshan. So let me just put a perspective. You'll find that actually generally the technology ecosystem, right? They're having a very fixed template. Unfortunately, in EdTech, India tried to do the direction, right? Which I believe was bound to get, I'll say that restructured. Globally, you have everyone either rallying around Apple or Google, right? Or Amazon, right? The AWS ecosystem. So similarly in agriculture also, you will find that there would be consolidation, and that consolidation would not be led by the Indian small startups. It would be led by maybe ZXS of BSF, or Climate Corporation from there. So those type of companies which are putting a lot of APIs open. Today, 80% of what Indian startups are doing, I can just get a simple API from OpenSoil, from Plantex, or some other company, right? So what we have been doing for past 7 or 8 years, now it is actually available as a service from other international giants which are doing it at global scale. So you'll find that Indian EdTech will go through in next 2 years, especially because of COVID also, that has impacted a lot of churn, where you'll have few technologies which will play a central role and other technologies trying to circle around it, creating more valuable, localized, contextualized product for the farmers. And this is what I believe would be happening in EdTech. So definitely consolidation is gonna be there, and it is gonna happen in next 2 years. And farmer will definitely be having, I can tell you, I see 2 years down the line, farmer getting 80% of the services through just a simple WhatsApp chatbot. That is what I believe would be the vision of Indian EdTech going forward. And remaining all the complex thing of AI, ML, blockchain would be taken care by some platform which will have a lot of other stakeholders around that platform. That is what my vision for the Indian agriculture technology ecosystem is. Now coming to the second question, when you said how this whole thing is gonna pan out, believe me, it's too early to comment on that, right? It's an evolving landscape. There are challenges of the funding, there are challenges of the government policies, there are challenges of even we understanding how to use data, whether data can cross borders or not. So I'm saying that still a lot of variables are there for to be coming to a conclusion straight away that how or what shape or who would be leading it. I'll put rest to Unni if he can guide better than me at least.
No, first of all, Roshan, I absolutely agree with you that this is a complex issue, and only an ecosystem approach will actually help solve this problem. We at Bayer has recognized it that we cannot just do it ourselves. We just have to, in fact, we even internally, we have a term called winnovation rather than innovation, because we think we need to partner with other players in the market to address different challenges farmers are facing, right? Now, the second thing which you have to be keenly aware is that farmers are people who basically trust when it comes from someone's mouth, which they can see. So it's a face-to-face interaction is the most preferred way of trusting the information which is coming in, right? And if we want to structurally solve it, we need to find a mechanism which can scale to the level of a country like India, but with these basic elements addressed. You need to have a mechanism to have a face to go and talk to, and you need to make sure that all the critical players in the ecosystem are part of the solution. So it's a one-stop shop, but with a face, but also with a lot of digital backbone behind it. So if you think we can solve our agricultural problem by having a viral, adoption of WhatsApp in India, that's not going to happen.
Thanks, Roshan and Karthikeyan. I mean, for our Digital Ag India conference, in fact, Mr. Samir Goyal, the managing director of Coromandel, gave an extremely good presentation where he showed how they are again like Bayer, they're working with various startups. Like he spoke about his association with Kalgudi, which is doing an extremely good job in aggregating inputs as well as the output. I'll take a last question from Krishna. Krishna, you can unmute and put a question. Yes. Krishna, are you there? Unmute. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually a very insightful conversation. Thanks, Raj, for organizing this event.
Thank you.
So just one thing that I wish to understand
Can
actually.
you introduce yourself, Krishna?
Pardon?
Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm based out of Hyderabad, and I work with a couple of farmers in Telangana region. So my background is from NGO sector actually, and I also had some stint into the tech space as well. Okay. So my question is, see, if you look at agriculture, you have the input side as well as the output side, right? And there are at least some successful interventions on the output side, especially farm to fork, where you buy the produce from the farmer using the technology, and or at least you use the technology to bring in the visibility and transparency in the supply chain, where the digitization has actually helped immensely. And on the input side, where the actual consumer is the farmer, right? Like he is supposed to consume the advisory, both Unni and Deepak also has shared. So I just would like to understand if there are any success stories on the input side of agriculture. When I say success stories, some stories which are driven by the innovators or the startups in this space, not the conglomerates like Bayer or BASF. So I wish to understand actually if there are any successful success stories on the input side of agriculture using the technology.
Yeah, sure. So, Uni, I'll take this because, startup ecosystem, I'm pretty
Yeah,
recently connected.
please.
Yeah. So, and I have to protect this space also, right? Because a lot of awesome guys have done beautiful work in India. There in input side, AgroStar is the shining name, Shardul Sheikh, right? 10 years back, they started this journey of connecting quality inputs to the farmer. They've gone through a lot of challenges because last mile access to the farmer is a challenge, right? Amazon can deliver your house in only C category cities, right? He has to deliver to the farmers. And they have innovated very well, putting their own warehouses, hub and spoke models, succeeded sometime, failed sometime, reinvented things, right? And now they're doing pretty well. So there is one shining example, and it is most valued Indian tech company. It's called AgroStar. Just Google it and study what Shardul Sheikh and his partner has done. So that will give you a lot of, I'll say, that motivation. That's one. There is a company called Gramophone, which is based out of Indore. And again, guys mixed from IIMs and coming out from the corporate environment and creating something which provide last mile access both for input as well as advisory. And they are very, very strong in Malwa belt, right? And for soya farmers and farmers of fruits and vegetable. Very exciting company. Again, the founders, good friends, and appreciate what they've been doing for past half a decade. Then the other company is called Dehat. Dehat works typically in hinterlands of where nobody wants to work in India, in Bihar, right? And they have connected thousands of farmers, and they have created a lot of quality advisory services and value. So that's on the input side and the advisory side of it. On digital, I'll say that data collection and AI and ML, those side, there is a beautiful company called Cropin. Again, Krishna and Kunal, good friends, done fabulous work for past 10 years and able to create a lot of insight from different type of data, right? Ground-based data collected from the farmers to agroclimatical zone, and then actually providing risks, I'll say that services to insurance companies, to government, where they're able to identify the risk, yield estimation. So they have done pretty decent, 10 years of struggle has now giving good result to us. And again, they are working in multiple countries. One more example I would like to share with you is called company called SatSure. SatSure collect a lot of satellite-based data from all across the globe and give a lot of insight directly to the farmer in form of advisories. They partner with those who are having online presence, right? Whether it's a corporations or even typically government, who have this extension workers on ground, and to those extension workers, they are able to deliver good advisory, which is actionable by the farmers. So these are, I'm saying that I can keep on going at least and they're pretty decent number of innovators in India which have held our head high. I also had a company called Microf, which I exited to one of a larger player, and which was also into a lot of crop advisory, working from all the way from Indonesia to India. Currently, we are doing a lot of work on controlled farm environment as well as conventional farming under a company called Digi Agri in UAE as well as in India and Nepal. So again, you'll just Google it. Believe me, India is having a very, very dynamic and vibrant tech industry.
It is.
Yeah.
Thanks, Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. No,
Thank you.
thank you. That actually helps me understand. So I was actually, when I say success, I was actually measuring in terms of the profitability. So all these startups
Okay.
which we
So,
have
like,
quoted,
okay, I'll add
so
here.
where are they
Indian
in terms of
agri-tech is on
breaking even?
sustenance mode as our farmers are.
Yeah. Krishna, you can also try kalguri.com. You know, they also have a provision, not necessarily one can do on its own like other companies. I mean, like if you want to upload some of your products and sell, you can still do that. So it's like something, you know, what Amazon, Flipkart does, but you know, it's a very amazing technology they have on platform, kalguri.com. Yeah, guys, amazing. I mean, almost to us, and only I'm feeling bad for you. You didn't eat lunch. I think you need to opt for your dinner. And see, beautiful. I mean, it was a very lively interaction. We could see, as I said, you know, people number going up. And thank you so much for joining me for this show. And as usual, I'm so thankful to my loyal attendees and the participants, where our number has tremendously growing from various countries, and each one of them come forward to listen to you and then take away, like the way we said, something unique about us is though we have questions in chat box and Q&A, but I would love them to talk to you people, and you know that's got a different feel, and then right from the horse's mouth. So that's something we do. We are on the Facebook with Ray Consulting, Ray Talks, on LinkedIn and Twitter. Please follow us for the updates. We did have continuously for the last, since April 25th, every Saturday this thing. Next Saturday, guys, please excuse me, being Diwali, I didn't want to trouble both my audience as well as the speakers. So, but yes, on 21st, I'll come back to you again. 28th, some extremely good speakers across the globe. And I think you have seen in the chat box, we have shared a Google feed form. So please give a feedback, especially in case, you know, you would like to hear from some leaders. Maybe it might not come to my mind or something. Like, thanks to Deepak, he connected me to Unni, and Unni is here. So that's how hamara karma badta ja raha hai. And thanks, amazing Unni, in such a short time, you know, you could take time, you know, been traveling and stuff like that. And Deepak, quick half a minute takeaway from both of you for the audience and for me.
Yeah, so for half a minute, I can always say that actually, like, you know, I also got this opportunity to again listen to Unni. So, like, you know, when you wanted someone else, I said, like, let me point out the guy I would also like to listen to. And here is Unni. And thanks a lot, and wish you very, very happy Diwali. And thanks, Unni, for being here and again enlightening me. It's always a pleasure to hear from you.
Unni, from you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a fantastic collaboration, and I'm really looking forward to it. Learned a lot, and best of luck. Thank you.
I think somewhere I've got an old connect with Bayer. I mean, I've been connected with Bayer for a very long, right from your Harish, your HR director, to all of you guys. Ramarao was a good friend of mine. We worked together in the same place earlier. So amazing things. Unni and Deepak will continue this journey offline, and then we will try and see how we build bigger, ambience to make India a very vibrant, agricultural domain, which is already there. Thank you. Bye bye. Please take care. Happy Diwali in advance. Please stay safe. Things seems to be, needs to be recontrolled again. So look forward to see you again in another chat. But I would love to have it in physical form as soon as possible. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Great talking to you guys. Bye.